Are you sometimes unsatisfied with the sound of your guitar solos and improvised takes? Does it sometimes feel like you're playing the same old licks over and over again? Or even worse, does it sometimes sound like you're playing the wrong notes, although you're doing everything correctly according to your scale diagram that you're looking at? In case you ever wondered why your personal guitar heroes sound so different, I'd like to show you an incredibly powerful system that will get you much closer to that immediately. And you don't have to learn new, super complicated and exotic scales for that. You don't have to study super complicated arpeggio shapes that are very hard to remember. You just need a little bit of theory knowledge, and we will cover everything you need to know to get started today in this lesson. So let's not waste any more time and start shredding right away. The main reason why we are discussing this incredibly important topic today is because of a really good question in the Patreon VIP Facebook group. Piotr was asking, how do you choose your notes for a guitar solo? Well, of course, you have to keep in mind the key, scale, chords and all of that, but often you can see a comment or whatever that someone has interesting note choices. So in my lucky guess, it does not refer to just playing scales up and down. This particular question is so good and so important that I want to make a video about it today. So without a super long introduction, I'd like to play two takes for you right away over a track in D minor, basically just a D minor chord. Let's listen to that one real quick. So that is our kind of funky foundation for today, and I composed two super basic melodies over that I'd like to play for you right now. So if you share my personal taste, the second take sounded much more sophisticated and much more interesting to you. I hope you agree with me right here. I was pretty much thinking in the same scale or framework right here, so I wasn't really using any super exotic tricks when it comes to music theory. I also didn't really work with more interesting phrasing or anything like that with the second take, so this is all about the notes that I was playing. So why did it sound more interesting and more professional, if you will, like a professional player would approach a melody over the track? Well, the super simple reason for that is because I was actively thinking about every single note that I was playing over this D minor chord. Let me show you what I mean by that, and let's check out the two takes once again. This time please pay close attention to the lower half of the screen. You will see a graphic right there that will make it easier for you to understand what notes I was going for with each take. Alright, things are getting a bit clearer now, I think. So for the first take, as you could see, I was mainly just playing the root note of the chord over the chord and the perfect fifth. So both of these notes are already featured in the chord, and those are actually the least interesting notes I could possibly play over that chord. Before we go further into detail and discuss the system that I'd like to show you today and that you can practice to get better at that, let's check out the notes that I was playing in the second take. As you could see, I was much more careful with my note choices for the second take. I was playing the major second, for example. I was playing the minor third, the minor seventh. I was also briefly playing the major sixth. That would be the characteristic interval of the D Dorian scale. So I also get just a small modal vibe in there. And overall, it just sounds much more interesting because I'm not just playing the root and the perfect fifth kind of the most boring notes over that D minor chord. I'm thinking about the notes that I'm playing, and once again I was playing the major second of the scale, for example, the minor third, the note that gives this chord this kind of sad color, the minor seventh that I would find in the D minor 7 chord, and the major sixth that would be the characteristic interval of the D Dorian scale. So for the second take I was really avoiding the root note, and I was also avoiding the perfect fifth. That is pretty much the only thing I did, and I did nothing else, nothing extremely special aside from that, and it immediately sounded much more melodic and much more musical and interesting, sophisticated and professional, if you will. And in order to do that quickly and effectively when I'm improvising, I'm not really thinking in scale boxes or in arpeggio shapes. I have a different approach, and that's the system that I'd like to show you right now. So this graphic might look really confusing at first, but it's really not as bad as it looks in the beginning. So as you can see, I have D, the root note, on the 5th fret on the A string and on the 7th fret on the G string. So that is what I can kind of visualize when I'm thinking about this chord, and when I have to play over this chord, those are the notes that I don't really want to play. Those are not forbidden notes, so it's not forbidden or always bad to play the root over the chord, and I do that quite a lot. But if you want to come up with an interesting and more exciting melody, you should probably aim for different notes. And up next you can also start to visualize the perfect fifth, A in our case, so on the 5th fret on the low E string, on the 7th fret on the D string, and on the 5th fret on the high E string, for example. So that is pretty much all that I was working with for the first take and all that I was visualizing when I was playing. And not only are those the same notes that I already have in the chord, they're also in the same octave, since I'm playing the chord right here and I'm also playing the solo right here. So whenever you have to play over a chord like that, you can start visualizing the intervals, like for example the minor third. As you can see right here, I have the minor third F on the 8th fret on the A string, and I also played it on the 6th fret on the B string, for example. The major second is also always a great choice and one of my personal favorite choices. As you can see, we have the major second E right here on the 7th fret on the A string, or for example on the 5th fret on the B string. The minor 7th also works great in that context, so the minor 7th of course for minor 7th chords and the major 7th for major 7th chords. For my take I was playing C right here on the 5th fret on the G string, and also on the 8th fret on the high E string. And the minor 6th can be a bit tricky to include in your solo. Sometimes it sounds a bit dissonant, although it's the right note to play if you're thinking in the D minor scale. For my take I was going with the major 6th, and as you can see you can find B in our case on the 7th fret on the high E string, and I was using it to slide up into the minor 7th on the 8th fret on the high E string. So with this video and with this system I mainly want to inspire you to not always think in those scale boxes, just playing the scales up and down. Here's an example of how that sounds like, since we looked at that in a video a couple of weeks ago. Of course, that can also sound cool here and there, but nobody will congratulate you on great note choices right here, because you were basically just playing all of the notes in the scale up and down. So if you want to come up with an awesome and really beautiful melody for your improvised takes or for your guitar solos, you have to work harder than that. You can't just see the scale diagram, like the dots that you have to press on to get the right notes for the scale. You also have to think about the notes that you're playing. And as I said, you don't really have to think in that scale box or in that arpeggio shape or anything like that. You can just visualize the neck chromatically, like with this graphic I showed you today. And you can start out, as you can see it in this graphic, just defining the root note on the A string, and then you can study the surrounding intervals. Because it's really helpful and absolutely necessary to know that the note, for example, one string lower on the exact same fret is the perfect fifth, one string higher is the perfect fourth, 2 strings higher is the minor 7th, and so on. With just a little bit of daily practice over the next couple of weeks, you will be able to visualize these notes as you look on your fretboard. So whenever you really want to melodically accent chord changes, you don't really have to think in different scale boxes and positions anymore. You just visualize the root of the chord, and you're not playing it because that would be kind of boring most of the time. Instead of that, you're suddenly starting your take with the major second over the chord, which sounds really interesting, or you're working with the major or minor third, depending if you're playing over major or minor chords, major or minor 7th, and so on, and it will sound really cool and much better than just always playing the scale up and down without thinking about the notes at all. So if you're practicing that for D right here on the 5th fret on the A string, you can start, of course, by visualizing D once again, the octave interval. That shouldn't be too hard. Then you can focus on remembering where all the fifths are located. For example, below the root right here on the 5th fret on the low E string. So A would be the perfect fifth. You can also, of course, find it right here on the 7th fret on the D string, or on the 5th fret on the high E string, for example. Then you can start locating the thirds. In our case, for the D minor chord, that would be the minor third. So you have F right here, or you could also play it here on the 6th fret on the B string. Then you can start visualizing the major second. So E, for example, right here on the 7th fret of the A string, or right here on the 5th fret on the B string. Then, for example, the minor 7th C, so right here on the 8th fret on the low E string. Then you could play it on the 5th fret right here on the G string, or on the 8th fret on the high E string, and so on. So you can turn it into a really cool exercise before you start your practice routine for just 5 to 10 minutes every single day. You could pick a root note on the A string to start out with that kind of exercise, and then you locate all the perfect fifths in the area around the root, the major and minor third, the minor and major 7th, and also the major 2nd, for example. And you're not just learning how the notes are called and where they are located on the fretboard that way, you're also studying the intervals and their function, and you can quickly play much more interesting notes over every single chord without thinking in a different scale box or a different position all the time. So if you really understand that way of thinking and you start working with that system for your guitar solos and improvised takes, you will be much happier with your note choices and with your guitar solos overall. If you finally want to get started with mastering this today, I recommend joining on patreon.com/Bernd. That way you can not only download the tabs and guitar profiles of everything that I just played, you can also download the really helpful diagrams for your practice routine, so you can work on this. You can also download the exact backing track that I was playing over in this video, and that way you can isolate all the intervals step by step and play them in a more musical way than just playing them by yourself. And of course, you can also join our VIP club in the form of the secret hidden Facebook group. Over there I can give personal and very helpful feedback on student videos, contributions, questions, guitar profiles, audio files, and much more. And maybe your questions will also be turned into a video like that one. So make sure to join us over there today to also immediately get access to over 100 lessons on technique and theory. In the end, also make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel today so you never miss another video like that again. I'm posting every single week, and that way you won't miss it when the next video is going online. Leave a like in case you will start working with this system today, and a comment in case you have any more questions about it. I will hopefully see you guys and girls again in the next video. All the best and have a lot of fun practicing until then.